According to the Foundation for American Immigration Reform, the estimated cost to Texas taxpayers for just state and local resources consumed by illegal immigrants is this: nearly $8.5 billion in education, $1.9 billion from Medicaid and uncompensated health care, $1.1 billion in law enforcement and criminal justice costs, $47.8 million in social welfare, and $577 million in basic government services. So Governor Abbott is just looking out for his tax-paying constituents. That's his job. But we have dueling research from both the Center for Immigration Studies and the Migration Policy Institute on the issue of refugees. First up, the Center for Immigration Studies, quote, in their first 5 years in the United States, each refugee from the Middle East cost taxpayers $64,370. That's 12 times what the UN estimates its cost to care for a refugee in neighboring Middle Eastern countries. The cost of resettlement includes heavy welfare use by Middle Eastern refugees. 91% receive food stamps and 68% receive cash assistance. Costs also include processing refugees, assistance given to new refugees, and aid to refugee-receiving communities. Given the high cost of resettling refugees in the United States, providing for them in neighboring countries in the Middle East may be a more cost-effective way to help them, unquote. Now, the next quote we're going to get into is from the Migration Policy Institute, and they don't disagree with that 5-year timeline. They just have a different take on it. Quote, since almost all resettled refugees arrive in the United States with nothing, it's not surprising that in their first years here, they rely more heavily than U.S. citizens on public benefits. But our research at MPI shows that refugees integrate successfully and that as their years of U.S. residence increase, their public benefits usage declines and income levels rise, approaching parity with the U.S.-born population. In fact, refugee men are more likely to work than U.S.-born men, while refugee women work at the same rate as their U.S.-born counterparts. The economic self-sufficiency that is the core goal of the U.S. refugee resettlement program is thus being met. As both the MPI and HHS reports attest, refugees are not the fiscal burden that some in the White House suggest, unquote. Now, according to the MPI study, which I question, why do we have to pay taxes so we can give refugees benefits that we don't even give to American veterans? If you think every refugee is thankful to you for the gifts you've given them, you'd be wrong. Representative Ilhan Omar took to Twitter to call out the troops that rescued her as murderers on what became known as the Black Hawk Down incident. She tweeted, quote, in his selective memory, he forgets to also mention the thousands of Somalis killed by American forces that day. Hashtag not today, Satan. So here's the argument. No one has a human right to enter the United States who is not a citizen. Just because a person or group of people fleeing poverty or violence or oppression, it doesn't mean that they love the United States when they get here. It just means they want out of wherever they are, and this country is obviously better. Now, if you listen to Democrats in the media, we haven't done our part in dealing with people fleeing poverty, war, violence, oppression, but we have. And then some. The Democrats, and yes, some Republicans, have been trying to throw the border open by any means necessary. You know, the once bipartisan Secure Fence Act of 2006, it's dead. Then we had the Gang of Eight that tried to create a second amnesty. And a little side note, if the 1988 amnesty, Simpson-Mazzoli worked, we wouldn't have been dealing with it in 2013 with the Gang of Eight, and we wouldn't be dealing with it today. The truth is, we cannot take in every human being on earth who's living in a bad state and put them on the dole. That's reality. But the open borders crowd wants more and more and more by any means possible. Why, you're asking? Because desperation is the source of big government power. More people in need means more is needed. Healthcare, education, housing, cash assistance, all costs you and me. President Trump tried to give state and local government the ability to not drown in the costs of social services, and state and local governments, Well, they can't borrow. They can't borrow like the federal government. So no. The answer is not to allow state and local government to go demand more grants from the federal government. The answer is to have a rational approach to refugees that doesn't endlessly pick the pocket of the citizen.